Hello everyone and welcome to IQ Dude. We're gonna go through 24 different tasks and I hope that they will be useful for you if you're going on a job interview. You know, you have to do some IQ test sometimes, or if you wanna do the Mensa IQ test and so on. To my experience, it's a matter of practice most of the time. 80% practice, 20% brains, if I might express myself that way. So it's all about practice. The more tests you do, the more tests that are explained to you, the more tests you do on your own, the better you will get on solving these problems, and the less worried you will be when you encounter them. So let's start with the first one. In this case, it's pretty straightforward. The black square moves in the right direction in each one of the rows. So in this case, it will end up being here in the top right, in the bottom right corner, sorry. So it's going to end up here, and the correct answer is E. Next one. Well, in this case, number 2, I don't even have to draw. It's pretty straightforward. You can see which one's missing. It's the square with the cross in it. So that's the only one missing in this row. And yeah, we don't even have to draw here. How about this one? Well, this one's pretty straightforward too. I mean, everything you have to do is put an addition mark here, so it's addition all the way. It's like a puzzle. And when these two are united, they will end up looking like a square, of course. So C is the correct answer here. Next one. This one's quite similar. I mean, it's still the principle of addition. So you add these two figures together and you will get a combined figure with the black square and the white square combined. So in this case you will add this one, and in this case you will add the cross and the black square in the middle. So you will get a resulting figure looking something like an A. So A is the correct answer for this one. Move on. Well, this one is a type of task where you have a rotating moment here. So it rotates by 45 degrees every time, and it rotates clockwise. And at the same time, every time you rotate the figure, you will add 1 bar. So in this case, you rotate the figure 45 degrees and you add a bar. And in this case, you rotate it 45 degrees, you add a bar, and you end up with this figure. So how about this case? Well, rotate it 45 degrees, add a bar, rotate it 45 degrees, so you'll end up like this. Then you have to add a bar, so you'll have 5 bars, 5 lines oriented in this manner, so it will end up looking like the option D, which is the correct one. Next case. This was pretty straightforward too, very similar to I think the second one we had. Well, only thing that's missing here is the square with the stripes oriented in this direction. So you have the stripes, oriented in this direction. Yeah, it's just filling out the one that's missing. So don't get confused with the stripes being in this direction, which is wrong. It should be in this direction. So E is the correct answer here. Move on. 7. Well, in this case, I mean, you can solve this problem just by looking at it. That's the easiest solve. So you see that every row looks the same. This row is identical to this row, and it has to be identical to this row. So the correct answer here is B, because that one is missing. You can also think of it as that this black part of the figure is moving clockwise every time we move to the right. This part is moving clockwise and will end up here. So clockwise, clockwise, it will end up here. Very simple. Move on to the next one. Alright, in this case all you have to do is just add a black circle clockwise. So you add it clockwise and you end up with this figure. You add it clockwise, you end up with this figure. Same thing here, but the only difference is that you start off with 2 black circles instead of 1. So you add it here, and you end up with this figure. In this case you add it here, go there, and then you add 1 more, and you'll end up with a figure that has a black circle in each one of the angles. So 5 black circles here in this pentagon. C is the correct answer. Move on to the next one. This is also a variant of addition, but in the other direction, so to speak. Or you may look at it as a subtraction, but I would, if you look at it in this direction, it's an addition. Very simple. So you add the triangle and the circle in these 2 parts of the figure. You'll end up with this, and then the figure asks you what kind of figure is needed here to end up with this figure if you add it to this figure. Well, the only thing that's missing here in this case is the black triangle, so that one needs to be in this figure to be added and resulting in this figure when combined with this one. So it has to be D. I mean, this is very simple, and probably I'm making it even more complicated by explaining it to you, but just so to understand the principle of addition in the other direction, because we will encounter some problems where you need to think of it this way. So far you've seen some different variants of the different tasks: addition, subtraction, fill out one that's missing, rotation with addition, and so on. We move on. It's another case of filling out what's missing, but with a small twist to it. I mean, in this case, you both have to recognize what kind of shape is missing at the same time as you have to recognize what kind of pattern is missing within the shape. Or, I mean, if it's a color or a pattern. In this case, we have white, we have black, and we have striped diagonal in each row, except for this row, because we will need to have a figure that is striped in this direction to follow this pattern. So we can exclude this one and this one, of course, at once. And then we also need to have one of each kind in each of the rows. We need to have one square, one circle, and one triangle in each one of the rows. So here we're missing a circle. So it needs to be a circle with stripes in this direction, and the only one that fulfills that is B. So B is the correct answer. We move on. And this one's pretty simple. I mean, here you see that we just need to add extra squares in this direction. So you can see that we have a square here, and then we need to add a square to get this figure, and then we need to add a square to get this figure. And in this case, you start off with 2 squares from the start, and you need to add 2 squares to get this one. So in this case, you need to start off with 1 row of squares, which is B. Very simple. Then we'll move on to the next one. So in this case, you have a rotating manner of the different figures. They rotate 90 degrees clockwise, right? And at the same time they change color or pattern, so to speak. So then you need to also look at what pattern is followed by, white is followed by diagonal stripes. Diagonal stripes are followed by a solid black. So here you know that white, we have white, so what's the next pattern here? Well, it has to be diagonal stripes, right? And then we also need to know in which direction this figure will point. Well, what we said before, it goes 90 degrees clockwise. So you have to imagine what this figure will look like after it's rotated 90 degrees clockwise. Well, it's going to end up looking something like this, right? And it's going to be diagonally striped, so it has to be B. Move on to the next one. So this one is of the principle of filling out what is missing in each row. No rotating moment, no nothing. You just need to fill out what's missing. In this case, you have a cross, you have a triangle, and you have a square each row, except for this one where we need to add a cross. So what structure will the cross have? Well, in each row you have this dashed structure, you have this zigzag structure, then you have the straight lines. In this case you have the zigzag structure, straight lines, but the dashed one is missing, so we will have dashed cross, and alternative A is correct. Don't get confused with the other alternatives, because this is not a principle of addition or anything of that kind. You need to recognize what kind of pattern they're after. Is it addition, subtraction, rotation with addition of something combined, or is it just filling out what's missing? In this case, it's filling out what's missing with a twist to it. Next one. So here we have at a first glance some kind of rotation, but with a twist to it, because the figures are also, the figure itself is not only rotating, but it is also changing. So it's rotating here, and it's a it's a clockwise rotation of 90 degrees, right? And this part of the figure changes to this shape, and this shape will change to white square. At the same time as the rotation occurs, a bar is added to the other side of the figure every time. So in this case we have a rotation, we have a bar added, and after the square a black circle follows. So we add a bar, after the black circle this shape follows, and we'll end up with this figure. In this case, rotation clockwise 90 degrees, rotation clockwise 90 degrees, so the figure will be oriented in this direction. The white square is followed by a black circle, which we will have here, a black circle down here, and then we'll need to add a bar, so we'll have 5 bars here. It'll end up looking like E, so E is the correct answer here. Next one. This one might look difficult from first glance, but here you have to identify what they're after. They're after some movement here, because this part of the figure is always constant. The semicircular black part of the figure is always constant. So, but the lines of the figure are moving. As you can see here, this line is moving to the left, this line is moving to the right, and it's moving a distance of like this much. So you have to appreciate where this line will end up after it's been moved again, and this line has been moved to the left. Will end up like a triangle here. How about this one? Well, if this one moves to the right and this line moves to the left, they will unite in the middle. And after one more turn, well, then they will go past each other and end up here. How about this one then? Well, this line will move there, this line will move to the right. So then you will get a cross in this manner. But how will this continue? Well, we won't end up in a triangle again, because this line wants to move here, this line wants to move here. So when this line's moved here, we will get something like this. And when this line moved here to the left, we get something like this. So we get an upside down triangle, or an upside down V. The only figure corresponding to this one is D. So D is the correct one. Move on. 16. Identify what they're after. Well, at a first glance, this must be some kind of addition in this direction, right? So we put a plus here, put a plus here, put a plus here. So everything on the left side of the line is added together to get the resulting figure here, and everything on the right side, we do the same thing there, so it's added up. And in this case, we add this one to this one, we'll get this one. In this case, well, we add 2 plus 2, it's 4. So we'll get 4 circles on the left side, 4 black circles. Then you get 3 plus 1, that's 4 as well. So, and you get 4 squares on the right side of the figure. And the only figure corresponding to that one is A. So A is the correct answer. Next one. Again, identify what they're after. I mean, if we move in this direction, we see that some things are disappearing from the figure, right? So first, this part of the figure is disappearing, so we delete that part. And then this part of the figure is disappearing, so we delete that part. We're going in a counterclockwise manner, right? And how about this row? Well, in the second row, this part of the figure is deleted. Then this part of the figure is deleted. So we're also deleting things in a counterclockwise manner. I mean, basically, this is the second line is a continuation of the first line, because this and this figure is the same, right? So it's just a continuation. And in the last row, it's the same principle right there. We're deleting this part. So this is a continuation of this part. And if we continue, well, we're deleting things in a counterclockwise manner. So we have to erase this part of the figure. And we'll end up with A. This is the only remaining part that will be left. So A is the correct answer. Next one. This is pretty straightforward as well. I mean, in this case, things are being moved in different directions. In a clockwise and a counterclockwise direction at the same time. If we look at the white circle here, we see where it ends up all the time. We can see that it is rotating. I mean, it's changing place in a clockwise manner. And the thick part of the figure here, it ends up there, and then it ends up there. It's changing place in a counterclockwise manner. And the same principle we will identify in the second row. Clockwise manner, and the thick part in a counterclockwise manner. Same thing in the last row. Very simple. White circle, clockwise manner. So it will end up on top. And thick part of the figure in a counterclockwise manner. It will also end up on the top. So we'll have a thick bar with a white circle on it. Then we'll have 2 thinner bars here. Then the only thing that comes close to this one is A. So A is the correct answer here. 6 more tasks to go. Bear with me. We're soon there. This one's a bit tricky. I mean, you identify the rotating part here, right? In a clockwise manner of the arrow here. It rotates in a clockwise manner. This arrow rotates there. 90 degrees in a clockwise manner. So we go from there to there to there. So we'll go from there to there to there. Here we go from there to there. So it has to point upwards. But at the same time, the colors change. So not only do we have to identify in which direction the arrow will point, we also need to identify in which color it turns to by the way it's rotating. So when the arrow goes from vertical to horizontal, it changes color. Same thing here, vertical to horizontal, it changes color. But when the arrow goes from horizontal to vertical, it doesn't change color, right? So in this case, the arrow goes from horizontal to vertical, and it won't change color. So correct answer here will be arrow is pointing upwards, and arrow will be white. D is the correct answer here. Next one. This one is also a twist of addition. It's just a bit more complicated because there are more parts involved, but it's purely addition in this direction. And then you have to try to think of what a combination of these two figures will look like when they're added up together. And if we start simply by adding this black part to this figure and by adding this black part to this figure, we'll end up with something that looks like this. In this case, well, this part will be filled out and this part will be filled out, and we'll end up with something like this. And in the last row, this part will be filled out, this part will be filled out, and this part will be filled out together with this part. So we'll end up with something looking like this. E is the correct answer. We move on. So this is a bit tricky because not only do we need to, if you look at it, it's nothing, not of a kind of rotation problem, addition problem, subtraction problem. It's one of those problems where you have to identify what's missing. So what figure in each row is, what figure in the third row is missing with regards to the other rows. For instance, here we have two parts looking like if we start with what we have on the top of the figure first. 2, 1, 3. 1, 3, 2. 3, 2. It has to be 1, right? Because we have all the different variants in each row except for this one, so it has to be 1. And then we need to know what kind of shape this one will have. Well, we need to fulfill that all of the shapes are in each row. So this is looking like a part of a flower, and this is a straight line, and this is a triangle. Triangle, flower-like appearance, straight line, triangle. We're missing the flower-like appearance, right? Flower leaf. So it will look something like this, like a flower leaf here. And then we'll have the rectangle, because every figure has it. And within the rectangle, we have, in each row, we have a diagonal line, a circle, and a cross. Cross, diagonal line, circle. Circle, cross. We need to have a diagonal line, right, for it to be fulfilled. So it will look like something like this, yeah? It's got to be D. D is the correct answer, no doubt about it. (22). Well, this one is very similar. It's like an addition, as you can see here. There's no rotation. There's no find what's missing. It's an addition problem, and you have to recognize it pretty quick to save time. So it's addition in this direction with a twist to it. The twist is that in cases when this figure and this figure overlap, a deletion will occur. So those parts will be removed. For instance, this part and this part of the figures overlap, so that part will have to be removed. And this part and this part, so half of the diagonal also overlaps, so that part also has to be removed. So what we will end up with is this part, which is there, and this part, which is there. Same thing here. Where do the two figures in the second row overlap? Well, they overlap there. They overlap in the diagonal. And they overlap in half of the other diagonal as well. So what we'll have is we'll have this one. And we'll have the other one. These two. And we'll have half of the diagonal. What about this one in the last row? Where do the figures overlap in the last row? Well, they overlap in the diagonal here. And that's the only part where they overlap. So what we'll end up with is this one and this one, two sides. And we'll end up with two sides in the other figure. So we'll get a square, full square. E is the correct answer here. Next one. Let's look at these rockets. Well, Pretty simple. The base of the rocket is changing shape, but it's also getting broader, right? So it's going from straight shape on the sides to more like a rhomboid or pointy shape, diagonal shape, to a straight shape again. And it's getting broader. Each time it's getting broader. Same thing here. Base, straight shape, diagonal shape, straight shape, straight shape, diagonal shape. Needs to be straight shape again, right? And it's getting broader. So out of these two, we have this case and this case here that are two possible alternatives. But we also need to look what's happening with the color of the base of the rocket. We're going from black to checkered to white. Black, checkered, white, black, checkered. So it has to be white. Only option fulfilling that is D, so it has to be D. And last one, final and last one. This problem is the same as number 22, just with different shapes. So it's an addition type of problem with a twist of deletion or removal of things that are overlapping between the two figures. So in this case, the circle in the middle is overlapping. It has to be deleted. And the triangle in the top right corner is overlapping. That has to be deleted as well. So we'll end up with this one. Triangle right there, that triangle right there, and that's it. How about this one then? Second row. Well, the triangle here is overlapping, so it has to be deleted. And we'll end up with this triangle here. Circle in the middle, top right triangle and top left triangle. How about the one on the bottom then? Well, these two figures overlap in this triangle, so it has to be removed. This triangle, it has to be removed. This triangle has to be removed as well. This triangle does not overlap, so it will remain. And the black circle does not overlap. It will also remain. So, we'll have something like C. C is the correct answer. And that, my dear friends, is the end of this session. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe on this channel for more IQ tasks and more brain practice. We're talking about practice. Thank you. Goodbye.